Hello everyone, this is Martha Reading Hedgehog, and this is my review for The Dire King by William Ritter. So I was sent a copy of this to review by Alan Quinn, a publishing company. I always struggle pronouncing the name. I hope I got it right this time. This is the fourth and final book in the Jacoby series by William Ritter, and as you guys know, I have been a huge fan of this since before it came out, because I had an arc of the first book, and an arc of the second, and so on and so forth. So yes, huge fan. So this takes place right after the events in the third book, Ghostly Echoes, so obviously not super detailed synopsis. But essentially, everything is going to hell in a handbasket with the mysterious Dire King's promise to return, and Jacoby and his assistant Abigail and their very few allies are the only ones standing in his way. So this review is going to be broken up in several segments. We're going to try this format and see how it works. Hopefully, it works better than my previous formats for reviews, but let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is characters, and of course, the first character that we're going to address is Jacoby himself. And I just want to say that I greatly appreciate the character development that he has undergone throughout the series. And fun note, I actually didn't really think about how much character development this book actually had until I started thinking of what I was going to talk about in my review. And it hit me that this actually has a lot of character development, and Jacoby's definitely one of them. Sadly, we don't get much more backstory of his, which doesn't surprise me. I was hoping we would, but we didn't, and again, like I said, that doesn't surprise me too much. But his character does still develop quite a bit. We see a more serious side of him, but we do still get his sense of humor, so that's nicely balanced. We don't lose any of that. And I was glad, because we all like Jacoby's sense of humor. But we do see a more serious side of him, and that was really interesting to see. I also really enjoyed Abigail Rook's character building. I mean, she's always been a really strong protagonist. I mean, that's one of the reasons I've loved this series so much, is she's a very strong, very practical female protagonist, and we get to see her grow even more in confidence, and kind of, she's got a lot of confidence in this final one, but she also still has a lot of insecurities, obviously, but it's very well balanced, and it's great because we get to see her and Jacoby truly work as a team. We always got to see that, but now it's something more. Like, they're just, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but there's definitely change in how well they work as a team in this fourth one, and it's great. But probably the thing I enjoyed the most was the fact that Ginny Kavanagh, the resident ghost of Augur Lane, is a much bigger character in this, which is no surprise since Ghostly Echoes was her book, but in this she takes on a more active role in helping Jacoby and Abigail outside of the house and actually on their cases and trying to stop the Dire King, and it was just really cool to see, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then of course we have Charlie. Charlie's back. Charlie's in most of it. Charlie's wonderful and amazing, and Charlie has a much more active role, and it's very exciting, and I love Charlie so much. We all do. Anyone who doesn't like Charlie is lying. So it was really cool to see. And of course, on top of all these old familiar faces, we get a bunch of new characters, and we get to meet some characters that we've only ever heard about and never actually met. And I really liked them, and I loved all the new mythological, fairy tale, fantasy, supernatural, what do you ever want to call them, creatures. I was really cool. I always enjoy the lore and legend that he brings in this series. And we get to meet the Fae, and I was very excited, and I very much enjoyed his portrayal of them and their king, and just, I loved the Seelie Court and the Unseelie. It was just amazing. Yes, great. So the next thing we're talking about is the villains, because they deserve their own slot away from the other characters, and I cannot address any of them by name because I don't want to give stuff away for either the third book or this one, so we will talk about the villains anonymously. I just want to say that one of the things I love the most about these series is the villains. The villains are really cool. They are insane, but they intimidating insane. You can still take them seriously, because sometimes you get villains that are so insane that you're mostly like, yeah, you're crazy, I wouldn't want to meet you on the street, but you're not that, I don't believe you're really going to succeed in taking over the world. Yeah, the villains in this, I believe, could take over the world, and I just really like them, because they still got a sense of humor. They're still crazy as all heck, but they're intimidating, and the Dire King was an awesome villain. And he could have been so cliche, and he kind of was, but in a good way. And his henchmen were great, and just, I loved the villains so much. Like I already mentioned, the Unseelie Court was really, really, really cool. Really liked them. So the next thing we're talking about is plot, and I have to admit, by the end of Ghost Echoes, I was a little concerned about the direction of the plot for the fourth one, because this is an end-of-the-world, apocalypse coming type of storyline. And this series, while it always hinted at a bigger storyline, started out as supernatural slash magical mysteries. And I always get a little concerned when a series starts out as, like a bunch of adventures, and then it starts going towards a bigger end-of-the-world type storyline, because I'm always afraid that it's going to lose what I liked about it the most. But the Dire King balances very well. You've got the big plot going on, but then Abigail and Charlie also get sidetracked by another mystery that links back up to what's going on. So we still have the mystery aspect, but we got the bigger storyline going on. And there's also lots of foreshadowing and misleading and characters not telling the truth, characters not telling all of the truth. It's great. It works very well. And like the other three, the Dire King has its own feel. Like, it's really hard to compare each of these books, because each one has its own unique feel, and this one is no exception, and it works really well, and I really enjoyed it. The plot pacing is really good. It's not too fast, it's not too slow. Sometimes when new characters are being introduced, especially ones we've been hearing about but haven't actually met, it was a little too fast, and I felt sometimes we didn't get to spend as much time with them as I wanted to and develop that emotional connection. But it still worked in the end. Like, it wasn't... It was a slight weak point, but it wasn't a massive weak point that's like, oh, I gotta take off an entire star for that because that was just awful. It's not that bad. The only complaint I have about this was sometimes it would divulge into these scenes where it kind of became a mantra of, oh, don't judge other people and don't discriminate and, like everyone for who they are, yada yada. And I'm not gonna lie, it felt a little bit like I was getting beaten over the brow with it after a while. I mean, it's not a ton in it, but it's kind of an overall theme in it. Build bridges, not walls type thing. And after a while, it did start feeling a little heavy-handed, and it did kind of affect my enjoyment of it. But again, that's a pretty minor complaint compared to all the praise I do have for this book. And really, it was only about 2 scenes in the beginning, I think 1 at the end. And so once it left those moments of, okay, and it got back into the plot line and stuff, it was great. So, minor complaint. That was the only complaint I have about this book. So this part, if you have not already read the book, you will want to mute, because I'm going to talk about spoilers, and you will know when you can turn the sound back on. So I have 4 specific spoilers that I'm wanting to talk about, and I have to. So hit the mute button right now. The first spoiler I'm talking about is Pavel's return, because I was so excited. I did not see this coming whatsoever. And then he showed up, and I was like, oh, he's not dead. And he's going to temporarily ally himself with Jacoby and Abigail, and this is really cool, because I love it when my favorite villains no, he's not an anti-hero or a dark hero. No, he's a villain. But I love it when they kind of when minor villains have this moment where they do have to ally themselves with the good guys for a while. I know, I love it. I feel like it brings their snark level up even more, and it brings up their cleverness level up even more. I love it. And Pavel's one of my favorites. I love him so much. He redeems vampires. So I was very excited when he showed up, and to be honest, he did make this book. I mean, I would have loved it even if he hadn't, but I loved this book up until that point, and then once he showed up, I adored this book. So that's how much I love Pavel. He's just great. The second spoiler I want to talk about is Jacoby's hat. He gets a hat back, and it makes me so happy, because I was so sad when he lost his hat in the first one. That was too soon to get rid of something that iconic. And then he gets one back, and I was very, very happy. I'm glad that he got his hat back. Made me happy. So spoiler number 3 that I want to talk about is Jacoby's sort of death-ish. So I predicted from book 2, I believe, that Jacoby would die and Abigail would inherit the seer capabilities. So when that happened in this one, I was not surprised. I was sad, but not surprised. What I did not expect was him bringing Jacoby back, and I was initially kind of like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, because suddenly their roles were actually reversed. Abigail was the seer, and Jacoby was kind of her assistant. But I actually ended up really liking it, because I just got the sense that it was going to work really well, and it did. In the brief moment that we get to see what their dynamics would be like, it worked. It worked really well, and so I really enjoyed that. And then finally, spoiler number 4 is the big one. Charlie's death. I will admit that when I got to that part, I had several moments of anxiety, not only because, like, Charlie's dead, what the hell, but my second thought was, I have to review this book, and the publishers, and probably maybe William Ritter himself, is going to be watching it, and I'm going to have to say that I hated this book. That is how much I was not okay with Charlie's death. And getting through the pages, I was just like, he's not coming back, he's actually dead, and I hate this book. I was getting ready to throw it across the room. So I was very glad when Ritter brought him back, and that it made me almost love this book even more, because it brought out very strong emotion, the whole scene did, but he didn't go through with the shock. Like, the shock factor was there, but he didn't just be like, and I'm going to leave him dead because that will shock readers even more. No, he brought him back, and I was very glad, because personally, it just didn't make sense to have Charlie die and stay dead. So I was very happy that he did what he did with it. It worked really well, and it brought out the reader emotions in me and did not make me hate the book. So I really liked it. He pulled it off very well. So conclusion, you can turn the sound on now. Again, I am no longer talking about spoilers. So in conclusion, overall, I had, minus my minor complaint, I actually very much enjoyed The Dire King. This was a terrific 4th and final book in the Jacoby series. I can't believe it's the last one. It delivered in all the right ways. It had great characters, great character development, great plot, great twists. It brought out very strong emotions in me with several of its stuff. It began, my feelings towards it began kind of slow. I will admit I was, kind of lukewarm about it, but then it hit a turning point, and the book just takes off from there, and it ends wonderful, and I have hopes, crossing my fingers, that maybe, possibly, we will actually return to this world someday. Maybe not with the same characters, maybe, I don't know. There's definitely room, I hope and think, for a spin-off series that I really hope will happen someday, but only if the author wants to do it. Don't do it because the fans are asking, just do it if you want to, if you think it should be done. But I do hope. It would be great. Yes, I do believe that fans of the Jacoby series will very much like this conclusion and will not be disappointed. And I really enjoyed it. 5 out of 5 stars for The Dire King by William Ritter. It was fantastic. If you would like to know my more long thoughts on the other books in the Jacoby series, I will leave the links to my reviews down below for you to check out. I have reviewed all 3 of them in the multiple formats, written and video, sometimes both, for some of them. I would like to thank the team at Alan Quinn publishers for sending me a copy of The Dire King and a copy of Ghostly Echoes, and just in general noticing my reviews for these books, and I really, really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed the series. I've really enjoyed reviewing it. I cannot wait to see what William Ritter writes next. Very excited. I would also like to thank the design team for the covers of the Jackie B books, because those are gorgeous covers and some of my favorite cover art out there, and it just makes me happy whenever I see them on the shelves. And yeah, cover art is a big part of getting books into people's hands. You guys did an awesome job. And finally, I'd like to thank William Ritter himself for writing this series at all, and going beyond that and giving it to a publisher and letting us readers into his world and fall in love with his characters. It's not an easy thing to do as a writer, to expose your creative work to an audience that may or may not like it. So thank you for sharing your world and your characters with us, and for continuing to, I hope, you write more books. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I will see you guys around. Bye!